coming up in the music, a Deep Blue something with that breakfast at Tiffany's. Might be breakfast in the Maldives for Michael Slater. Ricky Lambert joins me. And hi, Ricky.
Yeah, g'day.
I'll tell you, you have a little bit of this experience of Michael Slater, a little bit of a simile here. I mean, you were stuck in the Gold Coast over Christmas and couldn't get home.
Yeah, I was visiting my family like many people who have gone to India to visit their family, and they live on the Gold Coast. And then, I was stuck there because of a travel ban in effect imposed by the Marshall government. Mind you, they were saying you could come home, and my wife did come home, but she was stuck in total isolation at home, couldn't even leave to get the groceries.
Yeah, interesting. I know our daughter was in a similar situation, but this Michael Slater comment that has been responded to today by the Prime Minister, if you haven't heard the comment that Michael Slater made, he said, if our government cared for the safety of Aussies, they would allow us to get home. It's a disgrace. Blood on your hands, PM. How dare you treat us like this? How about you sort out quarantine system? I had government permission to work on the IPL, but I now have a government neglect. It's interesting because Michael Slater actually has left India and he's where?
Well, according to reports, he's in the Maldives, so we're sending thoughts and prayers for Michael Slater, who's stuck in the Maldives.
Just suffering away there, Michael. I'll tell you, this is a comment, though, from somebody who, if you look at his contract, he was contracted to commentate IPL matches. The IPL is to finish at the end of May, so there's still something to run, albeit that it will be abandoned. But we have to remember, Ricky, that Michael Slater went there when there were advisories about COVID-19 in Asian countries. And I do question his attack on the Prime Minister here. And I think the Prime Minister's actually got a right to defend himself against that attack.
Oh, he certainly does, and we need to leave Michael Slater there in several senses of the word because, in my situation, I went to Queensland to visit family, and a lot of people have gone to India to visit family. I wasn't going there to commentate on a cricket series and get paid well to do it. And the PM's hit back with these comments on Channel 9 earlier this morning saying, no, that's obvious. No, that's obviously absurd. This is about getting more people home safely, preventing a third wave here in Australia.
Interesting response from the Prime Minister, but what about this thing about people being criminals if they do come home via another country, which Michael Slater might well have been going to the Maldives to get another way to get home. But, I mean, what about this situation? Should we, if, say, you're over in India visiting family, a wedding, or maybe might have been a bereavement that you've gone over there as an Australian citizen to somebody that you have family back there, should we have a better system to get people home? Should the government have had more places at Howard Springs in the Northern Territory? Why have we not considered opening Port Hedland or Woomera or Baxter, one of those detention centres, and turn them into quarantine facilities for more Australians to come home?
Yeah, we'll share something that Senator Rex Patrick had to say about that in a moment when I interviewed him yesterday. The reality is Australia has been in a pandemic for over a year now, and the government's had plenty of time to foresee that people wanted to come back. There was a lot of scrambling in Canberra yesterday. There was an inquiry hearing. People were avoiding responsibility for this ban, this criminal law that they've brought in. But the argument has been that health officials said, we just don't have the capacity at the moment to deal with the number of people that would be coming back potentially from India. Now, they've had plenty of time to prepare for that scenario, but why would you use a criminal law and say you're a criminal for coming home as the way of dealing with that capacity problem? Why not create a Woomera or another facility where they can stay?
It's a heavy-handed approach. Matt Catavan also has entered this discussion, hasn't he? He's the Queensland Nationals Senator, and I wonder, is there a bit of disquiet within the coalition? Are the Nationals and maybe some of the more conservative Liberals concerned about this because they have a strong Indian population within their constituency?
Absolutely. There would be members of the coalition that they call the broad church politically, but they're across the whole broad church, from inner-city electorates where there's Indian people living to rural electorates where they're more conservative people. They don't like this ban, and I think the problem for the government is they've got a federal budget where they've got a story they want to tell about how they've handled this well economically, the pandemic, and I think they're going to want to get this off the agenda, this whole thing about, because there's a lot of anger in the media sphere about this ban, and I think they're going to want to get rid of it. So even though the ban expires in about a week and a half, I reckon they'll drop it in the next 7 days.
Yeah, maybe just before the budget, they want that to be headlining rather than having this ban still in place. Senator in South Australia, Rex Patrick, you spoke to him. This is what he had to say about this situation of quarantine facilities.
Well, there's a couple of things that are revealed through this particular regulation. One of them is the fact we don't have the capacity to deal with the number of Australians wanting to return home. The second aspect of that is that noting that there are particular strains of coronavirus the government are worried about, perhaps we don't have intense quarantine centres that might be able to deal with those sorts of circumstances. We've been in this pandemic for well over a year now, and one can look and say to the government, why haven't you sorted out this quarantine?
Yeah, well, Daniel Andrews, Premier of Victoria, he had a solution. He said, look, I'm going to create an intensive detention facility in Victoria for this purpose. And then he said to the federal government, but would you mind paying for it?
That's very well put. And, of course, Rex Patrick, I'm not sure that we can have every facility, a quarantine facility, with the types of medical parts that you would need. But I think we're talking here of a lot of people coming back that haven't got COVID-19. And the assumption that we put them in hotel quarantine because they don't have it. But these quarantine facilities at Howard Springs and, say, others that could maybe have been built out of the old detention centres could have been an option for the federal government.
Well, actually, I think there's a good answer as well. They're struggling for tourists on Kangaroo Island. They could use Kangaroo Island's high-quality resorts as an option. They haven't got international tourists. They could bring these people and put them up there.
Maybe Michael Slater can get out of the Maldives and get back to Cairns.